Good evening. Good evening. I am your host, Camila, aka Sunshine. Welcome to the Keeping It Real Conversations with Sunshine podcast. I am so happy. This has been a long day, but it's been a grateful day. Today, my mom had a small procedure, and what they saw before, they didn't see anymore. So, thank God she didn't have to have a stent and her heart put in. So, I'm grateful for that. I just got off with one show with Kanitha about human trafficking. Again, we are live on Facebook. We are live on GrooveRadioDetroit.com. We are live on Spotify. We are live on YouTube. Please like and share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please do so. I am waiting on my guest tonight. She'll be on shortly. And most importantly, I believe in 6 degrees of separation. You are one person away, one advice away, one help away from where you need to be in your destiny. Proving that everything works for your good. Everything. And this is no different. And once she comes on, we're going to talk about all of this and why it's so important for awareness. And that's what I'm here for, to let people know what's going on. Because if we don't know, we don't know, and we need to talk about it. I think my guest just got on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So awesome. I did my short intro. And this is another serious moment this evening that I have had. My last show was about human trafficking, which a lot of people don't do a lot of talking about, which needs to be talked about. The conversation that we're going to have tonight is another conversation that a lot of people don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And I feel like this conversation is another one that is a big need. So tonight we're talking to Brittany Budlove, and this is her story. She's 33 years old, African-American woman for the south suburbs of Chicago. She grew up middle class and was encouraged by her parents to strive for greatness. She graduated from Alabama Agriculture and Mechanical University in 2013 with a BS in chemistry. Oh, you were smart. She then attended Howard University and studied chemical engineering. You sure enough smart. Now she's attended University of Florida working on an MS in pharmaceutical science with a concentration in forensic science. She always prided herself on doing what was right. Unfortunately for her, her child was still taken from her. At that time, she worked for a company in Largo, Florida, which was approximately 45 minutes from her residence in Newport Richey. Mm-hmm. She also worked third shift for 12 hours a day. She returned home for the morning of December 6th, 2019, after working a 12-hour shift, and was only home for a couple of hours before her ex-husband's niece got rushed to the hospital, meaning she was not at home. She was informed every individual I encountered that I did not know what they were talking about because she was not at home. I even went as far as providing my timesheets from work. Though it was verified that I was not at home, they still refused to give me my daughter. I was not sure, not to read that part, but I want to specify back at, she was not at home, an incident had happened, and someone CPS took your daughter. So a lot of times we have heard when Child Protective Service, aka CPS, comes in, it's usually some type of form of neglect. When a death has happened and there's no other person around to take care of the child and things of that nature. But in this case, we were already told several times in the beginning of this part that she wasn't home. So even in this situation, I was always telling people how I know the person or why I'm connected to this person. I've never met Brittany. I got a phone call or inbox from my old high school alumni. She said, sis, I need your help. I know you have a platform and I know you're about helping people, getting them to the right place, whatever the case may be. I need you to get Brittany on the show. No problem. I didn't ask too much of anything. She said she needs your help. So tonight, we're going to get to the bottom of what's going on with Brittany and why she's here on the show, so that all those who are out here listening know some help, some way, some form, or need to take this show to a different level. She needs our help in order for her daughter to be brought back to her. So Brittany, you can go from wherever you want to start at.
Man, so like my situation is so complicated, and I don't think people really understand how complicated it is. It's like when for them it's black and white. It's, oh, you did something wrong, CPS came in, your child removed. That's not the case at all. So in my situation, I was married, me and my husband had just had our own child. His sister's daughter was in the system. We wanted to keep her in the family because the sister passed away. We had did everything for almost a year to get her into our custody. So you're talking about 3 background checks, home studies, working with case management. Like basically, we literally involved CPS into our lives willingly, trying to help, his family essentially. And so this child had been committed to the state since birth, again, which is still complicated. We get her. We don't know anything about her except, of course, we know that she's biologically, my ex-husband's family, but we don't know anything about anything with her. We don't know her medical history. The only thing that I knew is what I knew of her mother, who was, she has suffered from drug addiction for a really long time, and she just had some issues. So when she gets into our custody, and again, people, just, it's just really frustrating because people are like, well, what happened? I just want to put it in perspective. She was only in our custody for 3 months. 3 months. I literally have been on probation for work, for longer than that. 3 months of having a child who I knew nothing about in my custody. And people keep telling me, treat her like your own, treat her like your own. And I did. So I did everything.
How old was she at this point?
So she got into our custody. She was approximately 14 months when she got into our custody. When they removed her, she was 16 months.
Okay.
So, she was, I believe, just about to be 17 months before they took her. But still, three months. And the 3 months that we had her, there was just trying to figure out what was going on with her, because again, DCF didn't give us anything. They didn't give us any medical documentation, any history, nothing. They just said, they literally told us, if I'm lying, I'm flying. The case manager looked me in my face and said, she's fine. There's no documentation she just said, she's fine. She's healthy, she's happy. We got that from everybody, from her previous foster parent, from Everybody who we interacted with about this little girl kept saying, she's healthy, she's happy. She gets into our custody. She was not healthy. Happy, maybe, but healthy, no. I literally 3 days after she went into our custody, I had to contact her case manager about her having a yeast infection. Now, I'm not an expert or a medical professional at all, but that just didn't seem right to me. Like, I didn't cause it. I literally called her 3 days. You're talking about she went into my custody September 6th of 2019. I'm calling her case manager September 10th, you know, and I've had several dozen conversations with her case manager over the course of the few months that I had her. And to unbeknownst to DCF, they don't know what me and the case manager are having a conversation about. What would we have a conversation about other than the child who you gave me? Like,
Right.
what else would we be talking about? I don't know you. I wouldn't have any reason to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, so basically, we spent 3 months trying to figure out what was going on with this little girl, because she was not healthy. She literally, at 16 months, was only 5 pounds heavier than a 7-month-old and 2 inches taller. Like that to me, and that's what I'm comparing it. So I'm comparing this girl who's 9 months older than my baby to my baby, and she's acting identical to my baby, who is an
Wow.
infant. I
Wow.
mean,
Yeah.
and people are making me feel like I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. I did everything. And while she was in my custody, she went to the doctor a total of 5 times in 3 months. So she went to her first doctor's appointment October 10th. And that's when I voiced all my concerns to her pediatrician. The pediatrician basically told me that I was being a helicopter parent. Told me that there was nothing wrong. Because again, physically, then nothing looked wrong. I will be honest. Physically, she looked perfectly fine. But I'm watching her behaviors. I'm watching her actions. Those were not fine. And then when all of this stuff hit the fan, you have people saying, oh, well, the previous foster family didn't see that. She was also 9 months. She was also 11 months, a year. A year versus 16 months aren't the same time frame. I'm watching her develop, but it's also different too because the foster parents had her in daycare for 8 hours out the day. What would y'all know? I was with her every day, all day. I worked at night. So I was with her all day long. So I'm watching her behavior. So you have an inaccurate representation of her behavior from people who didn't see her for 8 or 9 hours out of the day. They saw her when she got home, put her in the bath and put her to bed. Like, how can you say that you know what's going on with her?
Mm-hmm.
And then testify that you didn't see any of this? Well, how would you be able to see any of it? You didn't see her for most of the day.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, right? So she went to the doctor over and over again, because she wasn't eating, she wasn't drinking. It was just, again, it was very exhausting because, again, I get a child who I know nothing about. Nobody gives me anything. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm working full time. I'm a new mom to an infant, and then trying to figure out a child that DCF gave me without anything else. That's a lot.
So if she was over a year old, why haven't she been to the doctor prior to that?
Oh, she was there at the doctor prior to that. So Pasco County, Florida justified their reasoning for abuse to his niece because they said she never went to the doctor with her previous foster parents. Now, in the process of getting evidence and discovery, this little girl went to the doctor every month while in their care. Every month. How is that any different? But the difference between them and us is that they were getting paid to have her and we weren't. They were registered with the state to be foster parents. We were not. We were relative placement. It was completely different. We didn't ask for a penny to have her. We just wanted her to stay a part of the family, while everybody on the other end was getting money and everything else for having her. So, but then the foster parents didn't have children. So what would they be able to observe anyway? It's different when you don't. I had a child in my home, so I knew what to compare things to. Whereas they just had her, so everything that she did seemed normal because they knew nothing about her history either. They didn't know how significant her history was when it came to her mother's drug abuse. As far as they knew, she only was in the NICU for for suck and swallow or something like that. I'm like, why would you think a child would be removed from her mother at birth and placed in the NICU for a month for just not being able to swallow? That sounds ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, they removed this child from birth. Why would you think that? They didn't know the baby couldn't suck or swallow in utero. So why would you think that the state of Florida would take a child, at birth?
So basically, she was having issues from her mother's drug abuse as a baby, correct?
Yeah, she was born premature. She was
Yeah.
born with 5 drugs in her system. She was born with several infections and exposure to different, things. She was in the NICU for a month. You know what I mean? So it's like, what are you talk like? But again, the foster family didn't know this history because it wasn't given to them by DCF.
Oh, okay.
They only knew what DCF told them. The only reason I knew anything is being a part of the family. I was able to get my ex-husband's sister's medical records, her birth records, from my former father-in-law. So I only had access because I had a relationship with the family.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would have been just like them. And so
Okay.
when I voiced my concerns to the doctor, it was based off of what I knew of the mother. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And every doctor was dismissive. They kept making it seem like that what I believed was in my head, that this wasn't there. So she went to the doctor in November, 3 times in November. November, I want to say 5th, November 13th, and November 14th. And the 14th, the visit was the emergency room because the doctor prior kept saying there's nothing physically wrong with her. And he even insinuated that she was intentionally making herself sick to get attention.
Okay.
And these are medical professionals. These are the people that we trust with our kids to make the right decisions about our kids, right?
Mm.
So his niece gets rushed to the hospital December 6th. Automatically, they claim abuse. Automatically, she had a brain bleed. I don't know why she had a brain bleed. I came home. I did my routine like I had been doing for the last 3 months, without incident, except for, back and forth to the doctor with her, without incident. They took custody of her immediately. First off, they took custody of her. They put a restraining order in. So this is how Pasco County and they're so crooked. So they knew that we were going to the hospital because they transferred her from a hospital near our house to a hospital in Tampa. They transferred her. I get there, with all of the medical stuff that I have. They have me in there to question me or interview. I'm sorry, they interview me, about everything. But they knew then when I walked in that they had already put a restraining order in to where they knew that I could not come back. But every question they asked me, they asked it to me as if like, hey, we know you want to, we know you want to get back to her. We know you want to get back to her. Let's just, let's just answer these questions and stuff like that. But they already knew that I would never be able to come back to the hospital to come see her. Like, but why do all of that? It's like, it's mind-boggling that they don't have to be transparent. They want the truth from us. They want all this information from us, but they don't be transparent about what their intentions are.
Mm.
Like, me getting an attorney, if you ask me questions, is my right. You shouldn't be misleading or lie to get what you want, because I would basically invoke my right to whatever. That's wrong. So it was just crazy. They came back to my house. They claim that they removed my child because it was an emergency. Meanwhile, they spent 12 plus hours interviewing me. That doesn't seem like an emergency, does it? And not only did they come back to my house, they first walked in on their own. They were never invited. They walked in my home on their own, without a warrant, without consent. And during their interviewing process, they allowed me and my ex to be in the room alone with our infant. So when they wanted to interview me, he was in the room because they were literally ransacking my daughter's nursery because the niece was in there as well. And they allowed us to be in the room with her alone separately. So how are you arguing now that it was an emergency? That's not an emergency. You're literally letting us still be alone with a child that you believe is in imminent danger.
Mm.
That makes absolutely no sense.
So her brain bleed was at this time, by hearing it, it could have been a natural progression, what was already going on with her, with all these doctors saying that there's nothing wrong with her. And so when this happens, you're at work when it actually happens, the brain bleed.
I'm at work. I come home. I do my routine. I come in. I check on the kids. I pump. But my daughter, she always wakes up when I come home because I breastfed. So I would breastfeed her and then pump after, and then I went to sleep. I was only asleep for about an hour and a half before my ex came and woke me up and said, "Is something wrong? With his niece." He brought her in. She was completely like her body was limp. She was awake. But she was whining. Well, she was whimpering, but her body. It was her body that threw me. It wasn't even just because she looked kind of like drowsy. She had been looking drowsy and sick like that for 2 weeks. For 3 weeks at this point. And it wasn't her face that really concerned me. It was her body. And then her ears were purple, but it was like one ear up here was purple and one down here was purple. And I didn't know why. Like, I'm just looking like, what the heck is going on? And I told my ex to rush her to the hospital immediately, like to go now. And then it's even, and I'm sorry, this part just really just frustrates me so much because the world wants to protect children. But then when you as an adult is telling them that you need something for a child, they're very dismissive. And I say this because when my ex rushed her to the hospital, he's on the phone with me the whole time, naturally, a mom. I want to know what's going on. He went to the hospital. The hospital literally is only maybe 10 minutes away. And that's if you hit every light, if you get stopped by all the lights, 10, 11 minutes. It could be longer if it's a school day or something. He gets to the hospital. He parks in the emergency spot. The valet tells him to move his car. Mind you, he has a very not very responsive, lethargic child with him. And they're telling him, the valet, who has no qualification in anything but moving cars, tells him he can't park there, to move his car. He moves his car. He's begging the valet to at least bring the golf cart thing to help him transport the baby back.
Right.
And after 2 attempts, this man finally decides to do that. And mind you, I'm on the phone the whole time. I'm listening to this conversation. I'm getting livid because I don't understand why the valet couldn't just take the baby or take his car for that matter.
Right.
If it's obviously an emergency, but so he gets into the hospital. He's telling them, hey, he's holding the baby, telling them, hey, something's wrong. Do you know they had him sit down in triage? They didn't take her from him. So when they finally admitted her into the hospital, it was almost an hour later.
Mm.
But we're the neglectful people. We're the ones that are neglectful, right? But you have this whole hospital staff who's completely incompetent and allowed it. And then the only thing I can get from Pasco County is that, well, why didn't you call the ambulance?
Wow, I'm close. What are you talking about?
But what would it have mattered? I feel like an emergency is an emergency. A child in distress is a child in distress. What does it matter if he brought her in or if the ambulance took her?
Right.
Why is the issue on us? And the messed up part about this whole situation is that when it came down to our trial for our daughter, I couldn't testify to this because I wasn't physically there, though I was on the phone. So that never got introduced into anything. And conveniently, the police, they took too long to go get the hospital footage, so it didn't exist anymore. Now, if you're investigating a child abuse case, why would you wait several months to get footage? But then they had a whole theory. They said, oh, well, it only takes 6 minutes to get from the hospital. I said, but you didn't strap in a child into a car seat and unstrap that child and then have to park. You know what I'm saying? Like, law enforcement it's so ridiculous to me. You go from one place to the next, and then you park in front of the location and say, oh yeah, well, I made it here in 6 minutes. That's not real. You know what I mean? anybody who has kids know you have to strap them in, you have to unstrap. So what was he supposed to lay her on the floor of the back seat and drive her to the hot? Like, how would that supposed to work? They're just completely ridiculous in their like assessment of what should have transpired. They're so one-sided, and it's so I just don't even have the right word for it, but and it's frustrating.
So where's the niece now?
So after, first off, they convinced the foster parents to lie, number one, because the foster parents had 3 different stories. They were interviewed 3 different times. One of those times it was a deposition taken by an attorney. They testified in our trial, and all of their stories are different, but yet our judge deemed them as credible. So the niece went back to them, and they were able to adopt her. The very people who didn't see anything for the 9 months she was in their care, yet and still medical records show that she was at the doctor every month while she was in their care, and was in a car accident with them. But in a two
Wait, you said she was in a car accident with them?
Yeah, she was in a car accident, and in a car that only had the front seat, and her car seat was in the front seat.
Huh?
That's my thoughts.
Wait, so it could be said, I'm not no lawyer. As we know, if you're in a car accident, trauma doesn't always come up right then.
They're arguing. So their quack of a medical expert, her name is Dr. Carol Lilly. She is a child protective pediatrician, which is essentially a pediatrician who only looks for child abuse, nothing else. So everything that she sees is a product of child abuse, according to her training. She says that the time frame in between the brain bleed and the car accident is too far. I'm like, not unless there was an aneurysm. And I'm not a doctor, but I knew that.
Wow.
And again, but even at that time, they physically checked her, but they didn't do a CAT scan. So at this point, the only brain image they have is the one from the brain bleed that day. They don't have nothing. They claimed they did ultrasounds on her brain, when she was born, but we don't have any imaging of that. So there's no guarantee that even occurred. It's just some nurse or doctor saying it. There's no medical documentation to support it other than notes. So there's nothing else to compare it to. So you have this premature child born to a drug addict that you have no medical imaging of their brain for the entire duration of their life.
Which doesn't make sense when you already know that she has issues. So she should have been going to the doctor more often than that anyway.
Because, I'm just to be honest, because she was white, they treated her like there was nothing wrong. Because she physically didn't look like anything was wrong, they pretty much acted like there's nothing wrong. I'm pretty sure if she looked like she had some kind of like Down syndrome or whatever, they probably would have monitored her more. But because she didn't look like that, they completely just ignored it. Like Florida, like Pasco County, at least, are completely negligent because they failed her from beginning to end. And then, so they deemed this brain bleed, and then they say, so now it's like, oh, she has a brain bleed and all this suspicious bruising. For the record, she did not have all this suspicious bruising. I cannot stand that narrative, and the fact that it is, what people don't understand, juvenile dependency is closed in a sense that all the information about a child abuse victim is technically confidential. So I can't publish certain things because it's confidential and it's a felony. And they do that on purpose because they use it to conceal their lies, because they can say whatever they want in civil court and you can't argue it. You can't let the world know that they're liars because you can't see it. And Pasco County published these pictures in every chance that they got. Okay. There's only one set of pictures taken about this abuse that they claim. And it was taken, let's see, she went to the hospital at 8 a.m. They took pictures at 7 that afternoon, after she had been handled by one medical staff, airlifted to another hospital, and then handled by another set of hospital staff. Then they took pictures. Okay. And then they also took pictures after they failed to intubate her twice. So it's crazy. So the first hospital had no pictures. The medical records say that she had a scratch on her nose, which we already told them. I was trying to clean her nose. I scratched her nose by accident. She's a fair skinned little girl, so it's easy to leave a mark to that capacity. Then she had the hospital, the first hospital noted that she had bruising to her ears. Now, again, it was up here on one ear and down here on the other ear. Okay, I still don't know how it happened. That was it. And then at the next hospital, after the Dr. Carol Lilly did her analysis and took her pictures, this hospital noted it's bruising all over the body. They every little mark on her body they deemed as a contributor to abuse. She had she had a scratch on the bottom of her foot. She had a bug bite. She had, and then they're talking about bruising to her arms and stuff like that. Stuff that really looked like people who had to take her clothes off.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's because it wasn't there first. And then she had a mark on her back. Now, I just want to clear this up. She does have, and I say does because it's not a did. Okay. When she went into our custody, she had a mark down her back, and that we believed it was a birthmark. Me being an African American woman, I asked my father-in-law. I said, "Hey, does this look right to you?" Because to me, it looked like a bruise, and I was ready to call the people on the foster parents, realistically, because I'm like, this doesn't look right. But again, me being an African American woman, I'm like, hey, let me ask some Caucasians real quick about this before I start getting, a little irate. I asked my father-in-law. He said that they looked like Mongolian spots to him. Again, I touched her back. She didn't react. It didn't seem like it hurt or anything, but it never went away. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, everybody in this case act like they have amnesia, like nobody saw it. Now, she had that for 3 whole months. She went to multiple doctors. No doctor thought it was abuse. And I just want to keep that in mind. No, every doctor saw her physically naked, and none of them thought it was abuse until Dr. Carol Lilly saw it. And now all of a sudden it's abuse. Again, remember, she's trained to pick out abuse. That's what she's trained to do. That's like me being, if I was trained, I'm a chemist. But if I was only trained to spot oxycodone, then that's all I would be looking for.
Right.
I wouldn't be looking for any other drug. So when she's looking
is there a possibility to have someone to discredit this doctor? Or they
yes. So the problem, so what happened in our trial was that my attorney, who's a paid attorney, he never got any medical experts. Now, that doesn't make any logical sense. This case is heavily medical, but he didn't get any medical, which makes me feel like he was working with them at this point, because you have one medical expert. And I say that loosely. She's not an expert. I'm sorry. Like, I don't like to be that way, but everything she said, she kept trying to say that she's saying it with a level of medical certainty. But the fact is, when we ask specific questions about stuff, she said, "Oh, we need to ask a specialist." Then why are you speaking?
Right, if you're not the specialist.
So she did have that mark, but I will bet my life that she still has that mark on her back, because I believe it's a birthmark. But the foster parents, we tried to subpoena pictures of her now. The assistant state attorney said that we're not going to subject her to that. But you subjected her to pictures in the hospital, but you feel like taking pictures of her now somehow is subjecting her to something. And then they didn't, and realistically, and they never even submitted all of the medical records in general. They pick and chose which medical records that they submitted, like in all the imaging. And we've requested those as well, and we still haven't gotten those. And again, my ex is still up for a criminal trial. Now, I still can't logically understand how my rights were terminated to my daughter when there's a whole criminal trial that still hasn't taken place yet. So they believe that if they can prove it by clear and convincing evidence, that it trumps beyond a reasonable doubt.
So your ex-husband is being charged?
Yes, he's being charged with abuse. They basically saying that this little girl almost died, which She possibly, I don't know, you know what I mean? I know what they told me, you know what I mean? But as far as looking at any medical documentation, they only submitted what they wanted to. So I'm not 100% sure based on what they said. It does, but originally they told us that she had a brain bleed due to a seizure. That's what the hospitals told us. And I'm not really sure when they decided to flip the script, but they did. I guess when they seen that she was a child that was in foster care, that they were like, oh, well, it has to be abuse then. You know what I mean? So, but originally they said that her brain bleed, this is the medical staff saying her brain bleed was due to a seizure, which could have been anything. We still don't know.
Right.
We're still trying to figure that out to this day. We're hoping that,
Now I got so many. Listen.
oh, I'm telling you,
So on top of that, and you say she was fair skinned and your guys are black, right?
I'm black. My ex is white.
Okay, so do you think on top of all of that, that could have been also another hidden behind the scene kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pasco County is very anti-black everything. Where I live, there's a Nation of White Disciples 15 minutes from my home. And that's just like a nice way of saying the KKK.
Oh shoot.
If you can Google it right now. And I'm telling you, they're right there. They're in Hudson, Florida. I live in Newport Richey. You'll see it's a literally a hop. It's like literally right
So
there.
because of this incident, they took your daughter from you.
Oh, so yeah. So basically, they said that they took her because they had no way of knowing she would be safe. And here's where the lies already start. My daughter was supposed to go with family. They called the family member, said that they weren't bringing her. Mind you, I didn't know anything about this. They left my home with my child, telling me they were taking her to family. They called him in transit and said they weren't bringing her. So for 2 days, I didn't know where my daughter was. Okay. Then I get into, but after they took my daughter, I had court literally 2 hours later. On that sheet of paper for the reason for removal, it states verbatim that Tiegan was removed due to abuse inflicted by both caregivers. Now, they haven't even been investigating anything for not even 8 hours. How how do you come to that conclusion? But
Right.
then later on change their tune and say, oh no, we know she didn't abuse anybody, but she failed to protect. Now, see, the thing is, if y'all would have wrote failed to protect on the reason for removal, I would have had a case plan. But you said that I beat a child almost to death in the removal, which gave y'all grounds to file an expedited petition to terminate my rights.
Which don't make sense. So
But
if that was the case, why would you, if you was, not to say that you would and you did, but if you was gonna be one child, why wouldn't you be both?
because apparently I just don't, because again they helped my former friend fabricated a testimony and she made it seem as though I just don't like white people. But my husband at the time was
But
white
you're,
and my daughter is biracial.
huh?
Yeah. Yep. But the judge believed it. As stupid as that sounds, the judge believed it, I guess.
Wait.
Yeah.
You don't like white people, but you married one and had a baby by him. That makes no sense at all. At all. So, okay, so now a previous issue with this, your niece,
Mhm.
that has been going on basically since she's been born, that the neglect was already there from day one,
Oh,
being
and let's
born
what
from a mother that was actually on drugs.
but it's even deeper than that. The mother not only was on drugs, she was in a coma while pregnant. They had to detox her while she was in the coma. She was diagnosed with Mother was diagnosed with a disorder that basically restricted uterine growth. Like it was just so many things that they never introduced any of her previous medical history prior to the day she was admitted into the hospital under our care.
So with just hearing all of this, of course, you having her in your house for 3 months or so, you already seen that something was wrong with her. Outside of the foster parents, outside of all of these people that have something to do with her prior to you getting her, even on the medical side, as a doctor, from this baby being born the way she was born, you would have more history, more medical exams, all of these things to make sure that she is living as healthy as she can be. So in those 3 months you had her going to the doctor because you felt like by watching her and her behavior, something's not right. So while you're at work and your ex-husband is at home with the children, right? The two,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
this incident happens where basically I'm gonna say that the inevitable happened. She had a brain bleed. We don't know how it happened physically, but there could have been an issue of it already starting prior to that particular day. You're at work, you get the call that while you're coming home from work that this already has happened.
I made it home from work. No, I made it home from work. This is the thing. I made it home from work. So let's just talk about the 12 hours before I got home. I went to work. The niece had speech therapy. So her speech therapist was at the house who saw her perfectly fine. Well, she wasn't perfectly fine. She was sick, but she was awake and at least alert. Then my father-in-law came by after I left for work. So he's seen her as well. Again, no bruises, no marks, no nothing. He testified to this. The speech therapist testified to this. Now, between the time he was there, he left around maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and 7 o'clock the next morning. That's when this catastrophe happened, and they're claiming that my ex shook her with such. This is Dr. Lily, quack. She's mental. She said he shook her with the force of a car accident. What? But she's almost 2. I don't know how that's physically possible. You know what I mean? She has full and complete control of her body. You know what I mean? How do you shake a child who has full control of their body with the force of a car accident? And the weird part is my ex, he has severe carpal tunnel in both hands where he needs surgery. He can't even close it. He can't even make a fist. How does a person like that shake somebody with the force of a car accident?
So what I'm not understanding, and I'm listening to this, this is like some criminal file type stuff.
Man,
it's so many holes in this story. And I'm trying to figure out why your lawyer didn't see all this, because it makes no sense at all.
He said he was like me. The crazy thing is, like me, he was convinced that there was no valid reason that I would lose my child. He was literally, I did 90% of the work for my own case. I did all the research. I made all the binders. I did everything. He only had to argue it. He would get into court. Like he went into court stuttering and everything. It was pissing me off. Like, dude, you talk for a living. Why are you over here stuttering?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like these women, Pasco County's court system is all women. These women just basically bullied him. Every single one of them, they just bullied him.
So is there a possibility of, or is it too late in the game to actually get a lawyer from maybe possibly a different county, a NAACP person? I don't know.
Honestly, I'm sorry. It's just Florida. Florida's just trash itself. I'm sorry. It really is. Like every attorney that I've spoken to is like, they are so afraid to actually do their job. It's it's just mind-boggling, because even then, like, even talking about just evidence of requesting evidence, we still didn't get. How the hell could I have a whole trial without having all of the evidence? The judge didn't care. The judge on my case is married so again, we're in Pasco County. She's married to the sheriff of Pinellas County, and she just does what she wants to do. She puts people in jail for no reason. She lets her own bias and her own privilege make decisions. She does not make decisions based off the law at all. Because if she did, in my trial, everybody was credible but me. She told me that I was too smart to play dumb. I don't know. I don't even know what that means. But
so is it? So okay, so
everybody corrupt. Just end the story. Look, the end.
so basically, I'm looking in my head. I'm thinking, okay, well, how do you get around her, and how do you get around this quack doctor? Is there a way to go to like the Supreme Court? Is there?
Look, I'm trying. So it's still. So the problem is that so many of us do not know, because again, we live our lives just in a straight line. Either people are doing wrong or they're not. When you're a person who just does what you're supposed to do, you're not thinking about all of this other stuff on the spectrum.
Right.
So I wouldn't, again, and dependency and DCF stuff is so complicated. They make it complicated for a reason. It's so complicated. So
you can give up. Yeah.
So normal people don't know what avenues, and then your attorneys don't even tell you what all your options are. They tell you the option they want you to have, and they want you to take. That's easier for them, Right. So as of right now, I'm just trying to get to the truth. My whole thing is, everybody is demonizing and criminalizing my ex, but the fact of the matter is, let him get his day in court. Feel how you want to feel, but let's stop acting like law enforcement don't lie. Let's stop acting like innocent people haven't been convicted of murder before. Let's stop acting like the justice system is perfect, because it's not. Let him get his day in court before everybody have their whole narrative of what's happening. You know what I mean? Because there's so much to the story that still has not been told, because of the fact that Pasco County refused to give the actual evidence like they were supposed to. So I'm hoping that with the criminal trial case still going on, that all of the stuff will be submitted. Everything. I still want pictures of her body. I still want it, because what I found out, the pictures that Dr. Lily took, she took them one day on the 6th and then on the 7th. Now the niece ended up having a blood transfusion. Interesting enough, her ears cleared up. Now, if somebody bludgeoned her, like Pasco County Department
you were abusing her, they wouldn't have went away like that.
But that's the stuff they don't talk about. They don't talk about stuff like that. You know what I mean?
That's why I'm like, can we get a doctor to eliminate her for one? And then it's so many poke holes in these theories.
And then Pasco County too, their original witness list, they had a bunch of medical experts, and I guarantee that those experts weren't capable of saying that it was abuse on that stand, which is why they took all of them off and put the only one who could on there, or who would.
So at the end of the day, what really needs to happen, that judge needs to be removed. The quack doctor needs to be removed. The lawyer, everybody, just throw them all away in the boat.
And again, and ultimately, all of this, again, so when they took my child, so what trips me out the most, and this is what I can't understand, and I need if somebody with any type of understanding of this, if somebody can help me understand this, it will be appreciated. How I can have a whole trial to terminate the rights of my biological child, but there's no trial for the child who you claim was abused. So where is that happen? She is with non-relative placement who are trying to steal her from my family.
You said what?
Yeah, you heard that correct. Okay. Tiegan, when Tiegan was taken, she was put in traditional foster care. I wanted her out of traditional foster care because I don't trust those drug-addicted white people in Pasco County to take care of my child. Whatever. Right. People can feel how they want to feel about that. My baby, don't care. I live in Pasco County, so I know that it is it's an opioid pandemic. You know what I'm saying? It's homeless, everything. People do everything for money there. And when I don't use the word everything loosely, okay? And no, I don't want those money hungry meth heads taking care of my child. No. Okay. So my former friend, I was telling her, that I was freaking, I was crying hysterical about it, because they wouldn't give me any information about my 9-month-old baby. And she was like, well, I have some friends that are in Florida that I can reach out to them to see if they're willing to help. Okay. She reaches out. They say they're willing to help. Okay. I speak to the girl myself. I let her know. I said, hey, this is going to be temporary. I'm trying to get my baby with family for all of my families in Chicago. Okay. So I was like, it was going to take time to get all the paperwork done. So she was like, okay, no, whatever you guys need, whatever your families need. And I'm doing that because she's obviously dramatic and a very good actress for that matter. And literally do all the stuff. I make a whole list of people for my child to go to that are family, and only one person who's not family, and that's the person who has her now. They put her, of course, with the only person that's not family because that's how DCF works. They want to sever the child's bond with family because it's more of a payout when they put her with non-relatives versus relatives. Everybody knows that. And so literally, and I didn't know this until I got the paperwork, but they put my child into this woman's custody 2 weeks later. So they put her in her custody, I want to say December 13th, 14th, maybe, or something like that. By December 27th, she told DCF she wanted to adopt my child. Of course, they're not going to tell me this, but it's all in writing. She told them that, and she's been fighting my family ever since. Her and her husband have been fighting have been fighting my family ever since. But she told me out her mouth that if she wanted my baby, she could have her. Yeah. So, they have 2 kids of their own, but they are fighting so hard to keep mine for some strange reason. They testified against my family, saying that they don't think it's a good idea that my daughter goes with her biological family. But meanwhile, this woman, no, black as the ace of spades.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, this woman, she was a foster child, but she has a relationship with her mother right now, and she prides herself on that relationship. But you're trying to steal my child away from her family.
And you should know better.
I'm just be honest, like my daughter being with them terrifies me. And I say this because my daughter's a baby now. She's 2 now, but she's going to grow up and she's going to develop. And what's going to stop any of the perverted people in her life or related to her from being a predator for my child? They have no tie to her. They have no reason to see her as one of their biological. They don't have a reason, and that terrifies me. That keeps me up at night.
Like, why are you trying to fight me for my daughter when, okay,
yeah, that literally keeps me up at night. I'm not gonna lie. That's a thought that sickens me. Like, I literally have super horrible anxiety.
So right now, because of the situation, you have not been able to see her or talk to her at all?
No. So basically, after my rights were terminated unjustly and illegally, because obviously, how could they terminate my rights to my biological child without having a court proceeding for the child who claimed to have been abused? You know what I mean? So I just after my rights terminated, I filed an appeal. The Second District Court of Appeals affirmed, meaning they agreed with the lower court, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure they didn't even bother reading it. And so, like, ever since then, DCF moved really quickly to make sure I didn't have any more visitation or anything like that. So, and then I'm at odds with DCF anyway. Like, 2 of the caseworkers actually filed restraining orders against me. Mind you, don't see these women, haven't seen them in over a year, but because I'm talking about them and saying their name on the internet, apparently people believe their names are confidential and private information. Confidential information is things that you can't find publicly. You know what I'm saying?
It's public information.
Right, but apparently that's the grounds on their filing a restraining order, and the judge, within all her corruption, decided to sign off on them as being valid. because they're upset. They can be upset all they want. Tiegan is my daughter. And if they're mad about anything, be mad at the fact that they are part of this corrupt system who steal children. I'm not going to apologize for fighting for my daughter. And if people think that I need to be grateful that she's with people who care about her, you can go to hell, because she has family who care about her. I don't need strangers to care about my child. I care about my child. She has family who cares about her. I don't care about anybody's care. And that's just a fact. And people are killing me. They're like, there has to be more to your story. The only thing more is that if you Google my sister-in-law, my former sister-in-law's name, you will see her rap sheet. That's all you need to know. That's the baby's mother. That's all you need to know. It's not more to my story. It's more to her story. It's not my story that has a lot to it. It's this little girl's story. Her story was pretty much doomed from the beginning. It's not my story. My story was 3 months long. It's pretty simple. You know what I mean? There's not more.
So your ex-husband is in jail right now?
No, he was so, and that's another thing. People feel like DCF cares about keeping your child with you. They don't. The night that they took my daughter, they arrested my ex. He was incarcerated for 2 months. So obviously he wasn't in the home. They could have given me my baby back, but chose not to. Okay, because they had no intention on giving me my baby back. The detective, and I actually played a recording of the detective. He actually said that they were never going to give me my baby back. That they were going to make sure that I never got my baby back. And even though,
but they're charging him, they're not charging you. He's not in the house. So
it's because I'm black. It's because I'm black. Because I'm black. And let's keep it 100. It's because I'm black. They were mad at me because, again, my first court date, I sat in court. It was only me there because this was the shelter hearing. This is right after they took her. The prosecutor stood up and said, "You people." I'm the only person there. Who is the people?
Yeah, who? Wow.
Who is the people? I'm the only person here.
So I'm gonna go on record and say I wish there was a Johnny Cochran right now.
I've been trying to resurrect this man.
Because
they are doing the most, and what makes it worse. So another thing, everything about my case, they are so used to fabricating information and railroading people that they are careless. The guardian ad litem attorney in my case, she was a part of a group text message with my former friend, the chick who has my daughter, the case manager, and everything like that. She basically fabricated my former friend's testimony. And then my former friend became her surprise witness. Now, if you think that I'm just going to let that ride, you are sadly mistaken. And I hope just and pray that this woman gets disbarred for the unethical conduct. There's no way that an attorney without proper documentation is having a conversation with a person who's claimed to be a group text message.
It's so many holes in this story.
I hate them so much. I hate them.
Like, I didn't go to law school, didn't want to be no lawyer, but I do watch TV, and it show a lot of holes in this story.
I hate them so much. They get this is all the conclusion I came to. They gave me a sick child, and they didn't care really what happened to her. They just wanted her to be gone. And so when something happened, the easiest people to blame was me and my ex, because, why would you blame the former foster people who are doing you a service by taking in other people's kids?
Are the foster parents white? And the story is deeper. Yep, I think that did it.
Right. I'm the uppity Negro in the situation.
Yeah, you're the ugly Negro in this story. It's so sad. Oh my gosh.
And so now, of course, a lot of what I need to do moving forward relies heavily on my ex-husband's trial outcome. Because at the end of the day, but what makes it even worse is that they move so quickly with the termination hearing, and it's civil, that I was told that even if the case is dismissed against my ex, everything's dropped, he's exonerated, they still wouldn't give me my baby back. Now, how does that make sense?
None. Because even in the point right now, he's not in the home. You're not charging me. You're charging him. I wasn't there. All these holes in the story, there's no reason why you wouldn't have your daughter today.
But also remember, my former father-in-law was one of the last people who saw the niece. They completely
Ignored
ruled
it.
him out. They ruled him out. They said they said they didn't believe he did anything. But I wasn't even home. You think I did? What?
Wow.
But this is why they did that. They couldn't take my daughter from him. The only way they could get my daughter was by making both me and my ex guilty.
Guilty, which they still, yeah. Um, Today, I know an hour go past so fast when you're having fun. Um, this story is very
Unique. That's the word I've been using.
it's so on so many levels with the underlining of racial issues. People who have power should not be in power, abusing the power, lies, deceit. One thing I'm gonna tell you is I don't know if you believe in God,
I do.
but I'm going
I'm
to say
so
that
at odds with them right now.
is one thing God sees all. I'm about to minister to you. God sees all, and what they think they're doing, what they think they're getting away with, is all gonna work out for your good. And because we're bringing this out in the light, and more people gonna see it, more people around, I'm praying that the baddest lawyer in the world come and find you and do pro bono, however that goes, to get your baby back, to let the truth be the truth. And this is what the law should be about, is truth, not color, not none of this crazy crap that we're listening to and what we're seeing happening. It's not over, nowhere near over. And you will get your daughter back. The time that you have not been with her.
So much time.
And even in this moment away, that God, you keep her safe, that the love that you have for her and your daughter have for you is what's going to keep you up here, to make sure that you don't do nothing crazy. You don't say nothing crazy, because it's bigger than this. And one thing about Nicole Massey is she saw your story and said, I need your help to get her story out. And they gonna pay for this. Because when I tell you, God don't like ugly. And it might take some time, but you're gonna get her back.
I'm doing everything that I can. I promise you. I
You
just need.
gotta stay strong. You got my number. I don't know if you have Nicole's number, but in those moments when you feel like you all alone and nobody's in your corner, I got you. God got you. The people who's listening to your story, they got you. You're not by yourself. It's more with you than against you. You hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what time it is. You can call me, because this is a fight. But guess what? You're going to win, because you didn't do nothing wrong. I can see if you did something wrong and they had a right, but you didn't do nothing.
Yeah. I think the worst part for me is that I was good enough to get that child, but I'm not good enough for my own. That's crazy.
So that's crazy. This Tiegan, we're gonna look back at this. It's gonna be in a documentary and all the stuff about the Black woman in the movement. We think we're talking about Emmett Till and all of that. No, we're talking about right now with Brittany. You hear me? You got this. You are not by yourself. So I want everyone that's in social media world, we get on Instagram about everything.
Yes, we do.
We get on YouTube and Facebook about everything. I need your help to help Brittany to get Tiegan back. You heard her story from her mouth. I don't live in Florida. It don't even matter where I live. I need you guys to get her story out so she can get the right lawyer, to get the right examiner, whatever needs to be done so she can get her daughter back. I'm asking you personally to help her.
I just want to, so basically, if anybody knows anything about TPRs, they're pretty much one and done. You know, it's like once they determine the right, it's over with. Now, I was told by several attorneys that the only way that I can get a new trial, but I just need new evidence. So I've been working really hard at this point to try to get the money I need to get medical experts to review all of the medical documentation. Because if there is one thing that was missed, that is enough for me, you know, to basically get my foot in the door. And that's what, like, I'm literally doing a fundraiser. I'm selling keychains and wristbands to do everything that I can. So that is so that's why I want people to understand that it's not a matter of me just getting her back. Like, let's be clear, the judge can reverse her ruling, and that's any lower court judge. They can reverse their ruling, but their pride and their godlike complexes won't let them because they don't want to be wrong. So they would rather make you look like a complete jackass and complete criminal before admitting that they ever did something wrong. Okay. So now my only bet is to make her look like an idiot myself, which is going back and letting the more competent people who know what they're looking at go over it and say, no, your ruling was completely wrong because you overlooked this fact. And that's the worst thing about having a bench trial, and worst thing about having judges who have no knowledge of anything medical. Anything that they hear, they think is valid that comes out of a doctor's mouth without actually processing it. And that's really just frustrating, unless their goal is to already terminate your rights. You know, it's one or two things. You know, they can already be against you. If something happened to a kid, they hate you already. So you're never.
You have your petition link.
Yeah.
I need you to send it to me. And tonight when I post this, I will post the petition on there as well, so people can sign and support as much as possible. I know God hears me when I pray. And now that we have been connected, they don't know what they just did. But I promise you, this ain't over by a long shot. All I need you to do is have faith.
For me, they took everything from me.
No, they didn't.
I know what I'm saying. They took her from me, and then I'm not gonna stop. Like that's when I can't speak for other parents or other people who they dealt with, but
all I need you to do is have faith and believe. That's all I need you to do, and let God do the rest. You hear me?
Yep.
And we can talk about this. We'll come back on here when you got Tiegan, and we're gonna do a whole nother show.
Okay.
So I want everybody again to like and share this video, subscribe. When she sends me the petition, I want you guys to sign it. If you know lawyers, great lawyers in Florida, if you know what needs to be done, please let us know the direction she needs to go into so we can get this done. So I want you to, again, enjoy it. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for me.
and keep up the faith. Trust me, believe in God, because He got this. God specializes in the impossible. So again, I will keep in touch with you. I'll do all I can on this end.
Okay.
And somebody will, I don't know who, but I just feel like angels been released on your behalf. And so again, enjoy the rest of your evening. Get the petition to me so I can post it tonight. And I will keep up in touch with you, okay?
Okay.
I will talk to you later.
All right. Talk to
All
you
right.
soon.
Talk to you later.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.